Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Big Questions, Small Steps. My name is Amanda and I'm glad that you could join me today. Today's question, before I get started, I do have a scratch on my arm. I'm aware of it. I'm fine. My cat just got upset when I was grooming them. Okay, don't want you to be concerned about me. But today's question came after talking to some of my aunts about my conversion process. They are from a Christian background, and their question was, they're very supportive of me and glad that I'm finding what's right for me, but they were concerned that I was not concerned about what would happen to me when Jesus comes back. So basically what they said to me was, well, aren't you worried about when Jesus comes back and you're going to go to hell because you don't believe in him? And so I had to talk to them about it. And in talking to them, I helped them understand a bunch of different points. And there are some differences between Christianity and Judaism regarding the end of times, what that might look like, and the devil as well. So I thought I would just go ahead and make this video so that you could be informed as well. Again, this is just my knowledge, my understanding. By no means am I a scholar or know everything there is to know about any topic, but this is my understanding. My knowledge has brought me thus far. If you have different opinions and different understandings, please let me know, because I want to learn as much as the next person. Okay, so let's talk about the end times or the rapture or the second coming or whatever you want to call it. Okay, so in Christianity, this is a big deal, the end time. There is different viewpoints as to what it's exactly going to look like. There are some people who believe that when it is this pre-designated end time, that certain people are just going to magically levitate up on sunbeams to heaven, where they get to live on clouds and walk on streets of gold and live in this palace and basically sit around and play their harp all day. That's what some people believe is going to happen. Some people believe that it's going to be like this Armageddon-like experience on Earth, and the good and the evil are going to fight it out, and like that's what some people believe. And as a result of that battle, some will be raised to heaven and some will die and go to hell. That's what they believe. So one of those two things are somewhere in the middle. Some people who are Christians believe there is no necessarily next thing in a physical presence. It's just a spiritual thing, that when they die, their body is gone, but their soul then goes to heaven, or their soul lives in that angst of hell. It's different for every person and every denomination. That's in a nutshell Christianity. Every denomination is slightly different. For example, the Catholic denomination believes that you do not necessarily go directly from a living person to a soul that is buried, their physical body. Your soul doesn't automatically go to heaven or hell. They believe you go to this like in-between stage called purgatory. So, but basically the Christian idea is there is a heaven and there is a hell. And there's some kind of selection or weighing process depending on where you go. How you get there, what it's going to look like when that time has come, that's different depending on the different people. And I don't know that they'll ever really have a full, true understanding of everything, because typically you don't get to come back if you die. Now, there are many movies about it, and there's different people's points of view, and it was full of warm, glowing light, or it was this, or it was that, or it was just this long hallway. I don't know. I have not experienced it, but that's my understanding of the Christian form of the rapture or the end of times. On the Jewish side, So just so you can understand what their perspective is. In Judaism, or Judaism, depending on how you pronounce it, they don't necessarily believe that there is a rapture or something negative to come. They believe that when they have done the work and done the efforts, then God will send the prophet Elijah to come to earth in a human form, and then they will build the third and final temple, and there will be peace on the earth. There'll be no fighting. Everyone will know God. It will not be a question or things like that. They will know him like intimately. And when that happens, it's basically going to just be peace on earth. And the Jewish people don't believe you're necessarily going anywhere. They believe the earth, because it has become so peaceful, it will be like a heaven-like state. And they believe those individuals that have been loved and have passed, they will raise from the dead, and you will be able to continue living life on earth just for eternity. I don't know that necessarily means that you have to go to work and things like that. I don't know. I'm not there. But I do know that they believe that they're not necessarily going somewhere. They're not going to heaven. They're not going to hell. It's a state of here, and they're bringing that heaven-like state here by doing their good deeds and fulfilling mitzvahs and different things like that. So that's a big difference when it comes to rapture. It's a big difference when you think of Christians are very focused on, well, they want to get to heaven. They want to be Jesus' hands and feet so they can get to heaven. They don't want to go to hell. Like, they're focused on heaven, whereas the Jewish people are focused on the here. They're focused on the here and what can we make a difference in here. So that's a big change. And if you have that big change, then someone may be able to ask the question, okay, well, if you're not worried about going to heaven, like, so Judaism just doesn't have a devil. They don't they think very much that there has to be a balance for everything. So let's jump into that for a moment. Typically when people think of the devil or Satan or something like that, they view God as this gracious, merciful, typically a masculine, but sometimes a feminine quality. And they're basically just compassion without end, without limits, without exceptions. They're compassion. And they view evil as there's excess judgment. So they did something and they're putting their spin on it. So the evil, frequently they will deem as the devil or Satan or things like that. So it's a different concept. So let's explore what Judaism and Christianity believe as far as the devil. Okay. So let's start with Judaism, because we just talked about what the rapture is like for them. So remember, in Judaism, they don't necessarily believe that there is a heaven or a hell that they're going to. So it's going to look differently. In Judaism, they believe that there is evil in the world, and that's basically an opponent or an adversary or something you need to overcome. Okay? I'm sure that whether you're Christian or Jewish, you can get on board with that concept, that there are things that you're going to have to overcome to become your personal best. Okay? They believe that this oppression, this adversity or whatever, it can sometimes take a form that prevents you or humans or whoever from fully submitting to divine will. So there can be like self-pride, there can be fear, there can be hatred, there can be bigotry, there can be all these different things, misunderstandings that prevent you from fully understanding and accepting and embracing God's will. Okay? But the big portion, the big switch for Judaism is they believe that this evil entity, spirit, choice, whatever you want to call it. It works in relation to God. It works in relation to God. So it's not that it's two individual beings. It's God, only God. And then there are these circumstances that come and test you, for lack of better terms. Things that you have to empower yourself to overcome in order to reach that full understanding, comfort level with God. So it's different. It's different in that regard. So there's evil qualities that the Jewish people will talk about. They'll sometimes mention a person named Lilith, that they believe is Adam's first wife, and that's a story. And if you know someone who's Jewish, please ask them for that story, because it's one that Christians don't typically know, but they don't dwell on it. They know that we all have our adversaries that we are working on overcoming, and that we're not all perfect, but they don't dwell on it. They don't fixate on the devil. They don't fixate on hell. They fixate on constant progress and work and working to better yourself so that you can bring heaven here. They don't focus as much on the negative as the positive. Make sense? Okay. Now, there are some communities that I have to do a caveat for. They have something called an amulet, and it's typically in like Hasidic, was like really, they're very, very constricted in how they practice Judaism. Sometimes in the Orthodox movement, there is something called an amulet, and it's basically like a capsule or a shelter or something like that. That it is blessed, and it's used to protect people from evil spirits, evil doings, things like that. Kind of, I envision it, because I've never seen one, I kind of envision it like a fallout shelter from evil things. So people in the communities that have an amulet, if there's something evil in that place, they'll go to that safe spot and pray until that has subsided. Okay? That's what the Jewish people believe regarding the devil. So they believe there are negative experiences in the world. They believe that those are things that you're supposed to overcome. They do not necessarily believe that there is a devil, but at the same time, they also believe that at the end of times, as Christians call it, they're not going to hell. They're not going to heaven. Heaven is going to be a state that the earth will be in, because there'll be peace on earth. There'll be no more fighting. There'll be people who just know God. And that's different from the Christian beliefs. Okay? Christian beliefs, they typically believe that God and the devil are two separate people. And pardon me, I sneezed. So God and the devil, and they're two separate people, entities, beings, whatever you want to call them, and they're in a fight. They believe that they're in a fight for control over individual souls, and as a result, and control over society. There are different frames of reference as far as what this other entity is in Christianity. In Isaiah 14:12, it talks about a fallen angel, or one of God's angels that made a bad choice or got too much power, and they named him Lucifer. That is one version that they believe happened and resulted in the devil or Satan. There's also talks of a devil or Satan in the book of Revelations, which is in the end of the New Testament. Again, there's different views on what that is. In Christianity, those two are still different entities, though. They work against each other, not with each other. It's not that you can overcome the devil you have to overcome the devil to get to God. No. And there are different religions that actually focus more on the devil than they do God. That's just what they believe. There's a lot of confusion regarding those two individuals and how they work together. It's the basic understanding is basically they're always in a fight for your soul. They want all the people, so they're going to constantly be fighting for it, is basically what it is. Now, the imagery that you typically picture when you think of the devil, most times people picture somebody in red with horns, a tail, and frequently a pitchfork. Okay, let's talk about where that imagery came from a little bit, but I also want to add that in the Revelations book, there is a description of this evil entity that is serpent-like. And one version or thought or theory on why that individual is serpent-like or that entity is serpent-like is because way back in the Garden of Eden, where it was Adam and Eve, and there was a temptation, and the snake convinced Eve to do something, and then it was all downhill from there. They believe that that snake from that story essentially morphed into the devil or Satan. So that's where they believe that came from in some situations. Now, again, there are some denominations who do not believe that that is what the devil is. Some denominations do not believe it's a person in red. Some denominations believe that the devil is more like a black hole. So it's basically the absence of God. Different denominations believe different things. And that's part of what draws a lot of people to Christianity, is because you can have your choice and have your expression be whatever based on your personal preferences. Okay. But anyways, I'm getting off track a little bit. Back to the imagery. So serpent-like, the imagery of the devil that we picture today is actually based on images from Greek mythology. It is based on information presented in the book of Revelations. And it's also based on, and this predates the book of Revelations, the pagan gods. The pagan gods in particular, they typically were more goat-like than serpent-like, but they had horns and hooves and they were angry. And so they frequently were described as having like red-colored eyes and things like that. And red is an important power color. Everything that is written down has meaning, certainly, but there is meaning in numbers, there's meaning in colors, there's meaning in shapes, there's meaning in a whole bunch of things. Red in particular is used when you are creating the image of the devil, because red is the color of blood. Red is associated with war, or that internal struggle between God and the devil. Red is also, it's a passion color, so something that evokes strong emotions, and it's a power color. So there is power behind red. You'll frequently, if you go on an interview, they will talk about power colors to wear as accents. So a pop of red in your suit, whether it's a tie or whatever, is more likely to get you a position, just having that power color. So red and the imagery from Greek mythology, the book of Revelations, and pagan gods. That's what was used to create this image of a devil. And then how the different cultures express devil, end of times, that's different as well. So that's what I discovered about the rapture and the devil or Satan or whatever you want to call them. And what you choose to believe, what fits with your knowledge and understanding, is up to you. Based on my knowledge, I've figured out what works for me, what makes sense to me, but you've got to do what's right for you. So until next time, enjoy learning, and I'll see you soon. Bye.